Hey everyone, what's going on? Servant R.D. Ramont, Kohaya Kingdom of Heaven is at hand. I've been sitting here thinking and pondering on different things that are happening in our world today and trying to come to some type of summary on the occurrences that are ongoing in the non-corporeal or unseen element, because that's what I'm attempting to look into, because everything that I see around me, this whole environment, is chaos everywhere. We have upheavals that's popping up all over the place. Of course, we all know that the government shut down, and there are employees who work for the government that are forced to work without pay. Then I look at other articles and other YouTube channels and see that there are thousands of UFOs that are detected off the coastlines here in the United States. Air traffic controllers and TSA employees have been forced to work, and many of them are finding other avenues to get out of working. So that caused thousands of flights to be canceled. Job crisis everywhere. Every time I log on with my phone to Google the headlines, there are businesses that are closing everywhere. These United States are going through major changes. Even me, my job, we've been striking for over 3 months. We've been on strike for over 3 months. It don't look like there is no negotiation, coming to the table to negotiate. It doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon, but I can be wrong. But I'm just observing all the chaos that's all around me. I look at Trump inner circle, how they are relocating to military bases because they have a fear that something is about to occur. So they trying to run for shelter. We know in Revelation where it reads that people are going to run to the rocks and say, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sit on the throne. So this is the actual depiction, the evidence of that particular passage of scripture. People running, trying to find some type of shelter. They're causing all kinds of chaos. The judiciary funds are running out. Even top-notch, high-profile journalists like Gayle King, she losing her job. And not only her, some of her co-workers. So it's chaos all over the place, man. SNAP has been threatening to not distribute necessary food that over 40,000 people depend on. Well, I tell you, and I'm just sitting here thinking. I have a lot of time to think. Because, like I said, I've been out of work this going on the 4th month. And, but at the same time, my wife and I, we are being sustained. So all praises to the Most High. With these occurrences that are going on, man, I try to look beyond what I see. Because, Paul, he talked about that in Corinthians, about looking into the unseen. That's why I call it the non-corporeal. The corporeal is the tangible substance that's around us. But the non-corporeal are the things that we can't see, which Paul talked about in Corinthians. And, I think about the story of Job and how it relates to what we're going through today. Job, he was a perfect and upright man, one that feared the Most High and eschewed evil. And I ain't saying we all did that, but they wanted to just give the narrative that this man, he strove to do that which was right before the Most High. And still trouble, heartache, pain came to him. And that story, it's making more and more sense. That story, it relates to what we're going through today. Yeah, we may not have the testimony of being perfect and upright and eschewing evil, but the circumstances that Job went through, we can look at it today. Everywhere we look, at every turn, it's chaos. We, as the covenant people, we've been telling our oppressors that they owe us reparations, and they just spat in our face every single time. Or they fooled us into thinking or believing that they were going to put forth effort to, start the process of distributing reparations. But we found out it was just a farce. We see that they brought people from all walks of life, from everywhere, that did not have to endure the things that we endured here in this country. And not only did they bring them into the country, they gave them high positions, to help block the mandates that we have been asking for. And so now I look at all the things that we have requested and all the things that have happened and that are happening right now. I see that there is a just recompense that is formulating. So when I look at the story of Job, and when he was attacked and his friends came to visit him, Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar, and even the young man, Elihu, how they sat with them and they began to pontificate. They began to philosophize. They began to speak in poetic form and speak with intelligent dialect, talking about the way of the world, as Maurice White say. But they were only looking at their surroundings. They didn't know. And so I don't think I gave the title of this message. I'm already in it. And so I entitled this message, Incomprehensible Conflicts. Because there is a conflict that is going on just like in Job's time. It was a conflict that they did not understand and they didn't even know about. So if they didn't know about it, how could they comprehend? And so I look at the things that are occurring today, and knowledge shall increase. We have grown more knowledgeable on the things that are occurring in the earth. So the Most High has given us even more insight. As Romans said, what was written in the past was written for our learning. So when I look at what was written for that time back then, and I look at what's happening today, and I go back to all of the eclipse that had occurred, all of the blood moons, the shift of the weather patterns, hurricanes coming in and destroying, even here in St. Louis back in April, A tornado came in the heart of St. Louis and tore up buildings, and people still trying to recuperate from that incident, from that catastrophe. And so when I look at the story of Job and I see what Psalms 19:1 says, it says, the heaven declares the glory of Yah. Then it goes on to say the firmament or the skies show his handiwork. When you look at the word hand, it denotes an action. You look what you use your hands for. You make a living with your hands. Those of you who are blessed to have hands, there may be those out there that don't have hands. Some people use their feet. But the overarching understanding of that word handiwork, it's dealing with a job being performed. Something is being produced. Handiwork. And it says that the firmament shows the Most High handiwork. So I began to understand when Yahshua kind of reproved the Pharisees when he said, you look in the sky, you can tell. How come you can't tell the signs of the time? If it's going to rain, you look up and say it's going to be a rainy day. Even if it's snow, it's looking dark in the distance. That look like we may have snow on the horizon. So how come you can't tell the times and the signs? And so what Yahshua was teaching is to look at the heavens, those things that may be incomprehensible. Does it mean that the Most High won't give you clues? You may not be able to comprehend, but you can obtain some type of clue because the Most High will drop breadcrumbs for you to understand what is about to occur. But when you look at that scripture in Psalm 19:1, where it says the heavens declare when the heavens declare the glory of Yah, we look at glory. Sometimes we interpret that as beauty, glory, the beauty of the universe. When they say the glory of Yah, the heavens declare how beautiful it is. When I look at some of the messages the Gentiles have tried to deliver on this psalm, this Psalter 19:1, how the heavens declare the beautiful work of the Most High. That's how they declare glory. But the Spirit nudged me and kind of reminded me that word glory goes deeper than what I have observed. This connotation, this definition of glory should be looked into from a deeper perspective. There was a movie that was produced, I believe in the early 90s, 80s or early 90s, I can't remember, with Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, Matthew Broderick, and a host of great actors, called Glory. And in that movie, it wasn't just talking about beauty. It wasn't just talking about splendor or magnificent, as we may interpret the scripture when it say the heavens declare the glory. But in this movie, it was talking about valor, victory, being triumphant. And so when the scriptures say the heavens declared the glory of Yah, for there to be a declaration, there has to be a reason for that declaration to be spoken or to be expressed. And when you look at the fact that there must be a reason to declare glory, and when you look at this connotation of the word glory, which denotes honor through warfare, victory, and being triumphant through conflict. When you look at the heavens declare the glory of Yah, The heaven is expressing, is giving us clues that the conflict that is going on in the realm which we do not see will ultimately be played out and on display in the earth. Now I begin to understand when Messiah told us to pray, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So when I look at all these things that are these events, crises, jobs being lost, food, hunger, famine, there is an action that is going on that we cannot see, therefore we can't comprehend. But just because we can't comprehend, like Job's friends, Job, doesn't mean that it is not occurring. It's occurring, and the Most High has given us clues. And through the breadcrumbs that the Most High has delivered to us, He is some way, somehow delivering peace of mind, understanding that He's under control. Because when you look at Job and when you read the book, it all started with a conversation between good and evil, the Most High and the evil one. Before Job before his situation began to turn for the worse, there was a conversation that happened in the realm which Job had no clue was occurring. This is what we must understand. So I see how this book ties into what's going on today. I hope y'all understand what I'm saying. Because after the conversation in the heavens, in the firmament, in the cosmos, wherever this non-corporeal reality took place, it eventually began to play out in the earth. And when they began to speak, from that time when Job began to lose everything all the way up to the 37th verse, they were all wrong. Why? Because there was an incomprehensible conflict that was occurring, and it was occurring for their own good. When Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar exchanged ideas, and finally the young Elihu chimed in. And so that shows how the young should respect the older, the elderly. Because the young, he sat there and listened to all of them, and then he pointed them in the right direction. But he still didn't know. He just understood that we need to look to the Most High. And so we, in that Elihu period of time where we just have to look to the Most High, because there are things that are occurring that we really can't grasp. But check this out. When the Most High chimed in verse 38, He did not give a direct answer to Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar, or even Job's questions and pontifications. He started talking about the creation. He said, where were you? He started talking about the seas, the earth. He started talking about the foundations of the earth, the stars. He said when He gathered the stars together, He talked about shutting up the sea like you shut a door. He talked about all of the creation that created order. But guess what? David gave us a clue when he said, The heavens declare the glory of Yah. All these things that Yah was explaining to Job and his friends. And he was talking about the rain, talking about the dew. He even talked about battle and warfare. Look at verse 23 of Job 38. Now let's look at verse 18th of Job 38. 18th verse of the 38th chapter of Job. It says, hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare it if thou knowest it. Where is the way where light dwelleth? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof? You say, where is darkness? Where it come from? How you know? I know we got a lot of scientists that try to explain, but according to the Most High, he telling you really don't know. It's just your pontifications. Because he goes on to say in 20th that thou should take it to the bounds thereof. What can you take darkness to the bounds thereof, to the boundaries? And that thou should have known the paths to the house thereof, wherever darkness is housed. Do you know? Verse 21. Knowest thou it because thou was then born, or because the number of thy days is great? Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow? Or hast thou seen the treasure of hell? My goodness. Which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war. So when you read that scripture and say the heaven declared the glory, it's talking about battle and war. It's talking about the warfare that's happening beyond what our eyes can see, but the Most High has given us breadcrumbs, letting us know that everything's going to be all right. So when I talked about the reparations, we're going to receive them because the Most High promised them. He said great substance. We may not be able to comprehend like Job, but understand the Most High is in control. And all these things that's happening, it's the breaking down of the systems that were set up to prevent the promises of the Most High to commence. We don't know. When I was in Lindenwood Theological Seminary, Lindenwood University, there was a branch of Covenant Theological Seminary that we studied under. And I think this man was named J.I. Packer, I believe, J.I. Packer or something like that. Well, anyway, they gave us a book in evangelistic talking about knowing God. What? How in the world can you write a book talking about knowing the Most High? When you read the book of Job, it's talking about you don't know nothing. It's incomprehensible, brothers and sisters. The conflict that we see on earth is something that was going on in the heavens. But guess what? The heavens are beautiful. The heavens are orderly. So what does that declare when they say the heaven declare the glory? The glory which is conflict, victory, valor, triumph. It also denotes honor through warfare. So the heavens are in alignment. The stars are in alignment. The sun is in the position to rise, to shine at a certain time of the day, and for darkness to step in. The Most High has arranged all of that. It says it in the book of Job. So if we see the arrangement and the final order that the Most High has placed in the heavens, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Therefore, the earth is going through this chaos so that the promises will be fulfilled and all order of the Most High will be restored. A conflict that is incomprehensible, but the heavens have given us breadcrumbs to hold on to the hope that lies within us. Servant RD out. Peace, y'all.